We have got some absolutely wild news coming out of the Mouse House today. Apparently, Disney Plus is set to allow user-generated content via AI. All the details right here. That's right, this is a big news drop from Disney. As reported by The Hollywood Reporter, Disney Plus is set to allow user-generated content via AI. Apparently, Disney CEO Bob Iger has hinted at productive conversations with unnamed AI companies that would protect IP but add new features to the studio's flagship streaming service. Of course, AI is becoming rampant across Hollywood. We're seeing a lot more studios and a lot more streaming services start to use AI tools, and they're not being as secretive as perhaps they were a year or so ago. This has become the new thing in Hollywood. We're about to see this being used across all things from script writing to content generation. We've also seen the emergence of this quote-unquote AI actress, Tilly Norwood. But also at the same time, we're seeing a lot of trade unions putting sanctions and laws on the use of these tools to protect their clients and industry artists. According to this Hollywood Reporter article, don't want to wait until 2027 for Frozen 3? Soon, you may be able to make your own. On the company's fourth quarter and full year 2025 earnings conference call, Disney's CEO Bob Iger said Disney Plus is in the midst of rolling out the biggest and most significant changes from a product perspective. From a technology perspective, since we launched the service in 2019. Changes will include games, or at least a number of game-like features, and there will also be Gen AI short-form user-generated content on Disney Plus in the future. This sounds crazy, and the article continues to elaborate on it, and it just sounds wackier as it goes along. The other thing we're really excited about that AI is going to give us the ability to do is to provide users of Disney Plus with a much more engaged experience, including the ability for them to create user-generated content, to consume user-generated content, mostly short form, from others. So what exactly is going on here? This is one of the wildest stories I've seen in a long time. I mean, it's probably not unexpected from the current regime over at Disney, who have been doing a whole lot of controversial things over the last few years. But this seems to go against everything the Disney company has been about since the very beginning. Disney have been very, very well known for being highly protective of their IP, and rightly so. We go back to stories from the late 1980s that allege that Disney went after childcare centers for having unofficial murals of Disney characters painted across their buildings. We've all seen the ice cream trucks with off-model Mickey Mouse and Snow Whites and carnival attractions, but of course they're not going to grab them all because this is just such a widespread issue, and it always has been. I mean, Walt Disney even put a sanction on his own company. He decommissioned the Mickey Mouse characters throughout the war years because he didn't want Mickey sullied by what was going on during wartime. He decommissioned the character, and that's how Donald Duck became so popular during the 1940s during the war, because they were able to use Donald in these edgier, more adult, more violent wartime cartoons. Disney has always been so protective over their characters. Now, this is not to say that whatever AI generated content you can make on this is not going to be without borders or restrictions. There's going to be some kind of restrictions. We're not going to be able to make cartoons with Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse swearing their heads off. Not a chance. In fact, the article does go on to say that Disney have had productive conversations with unnamed AI companies, and that he hoped that the studio could reach an agreement that would also reflect our need to protect the IP. And they're probably going to be extra stringent with this, particularly with all of these unofficial Mickey Mouse parodies arising in the wake of the early versions of the character entering the public domain. Although this could also be a countermeasure from the company, who are facing up to the fact that their characters are not going to be in their hands forever. But this is a kind of weird and interesting development. Now, do I think you're going to be able to make really, really great stuff that you're not going to be able to distinguish from the real Disney stuff? Absolutely not. Now, there was this video game back, I guess, over 20 years ago, back in the late 90s, called The Simpsons Cartoon Studio. I loved this bloody thing. You could essentially make your own Simpsons cartoons on it. You could use what were basically like 16-bit GIFs of the characters. You could use sound bites and music from the episodes, and you could use backgrounds and all this stuff, and the end product would come out looking something like this.
Bart! Go! 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 Hey, kids!
So you were never able to make something really that great, and I have a feeling that anything that you're going to be able to make inside of Disney Plus, a app that is primarily used on televisions and mobile devices, is probably not going to have a lot more power. Of course, you're probably going to be able to make stuff going to look a little bit more schmicker than, 20, 30-year-old technology. But I don't think we're going to be able to make something that's going to be like the greatest thing you've ever seen. I think really what this is going to boil down to is you being able to make compilation cuts with some of your favorite scenes, or maybe something similar to the Simpsons Cartoon Studio where you have a little gif of Mickey Mouse running around on a background or something like that. But then on the other side, we have all seen how good AI has gotten in a very, very short time span. And as the technology gets better, the more accessible that becomes, and stuff like TVs and mobile tablets may be able to access or implement or utilize these very high-powered tools, where you could quite literally make a pretty flawless Mickey Mouse cartoon in 2-3 years time. I could even see there was this special feature, I think, on the original Shrek DVD in the early 2000s. It was like a CD-ROM interactive feature where you could re-record the dialogue from a scene and have your voiceover over the top of. I feel like that's probably gonna be the kind of stuff that we're gonna be able to do in this Disney Plus Gen AI sort of implementation. So is this a good idea? Look, as someone who enjoyed playing around with the Simpsons Cartoon Studio or that Shrek feature on the DVD, I loved the chance to be able to play around in a sandbox with some of my favorite characters and create some of my own content, and then sit back and watch my own crappy little 45-second Simpsons cartoon where Bart smacks Krusty the Clown over the head with a skateboard. But this is a whole new beast where we're using these tools, which are so highly controversial, to create content based on other users' content, perhaps without their permission. Like, until we hear more about this, I don't know how much we can say. It could just simply be that it's using tools with AI to create things, and not specifically like generative AI, which would be feeding off other people's work, which I think is the most controversial part of the whole AI conversation. But this could be heading down a really dark path. I don't want to get into that whole debate, but it's going to be very interesting to see where Disney goes with this. So how about you out there? What are your thoughts on Disney Plus implementing AI tools to help you create your own user-generated content? As always, join the conversation down below.